Greetings guys, it's Irish here. As you could probably see, I'm taking a look at Slackware Linux. It is one of the oldest surviving Linux distributions. If we come to the Wikipedia, you could see that the latest release was of June 2016, and its initial release was July 17th of 1993, so about a little over 24 years ago. So you could tell by the Slackware website that it is definitely a product of the 90s. The initial installation is pretty straightforward for the most part, as long as you read before going through everything. It's an ncurses installation, very similar to how Architect is or how Arch Linux used to be. There's one thing that this one uses that others don't is the bootloader is something called Lilo. It is very, very basic. It's just a black screen with a entry that says Linux on it, and it has the Slackware what would be logo. So as you could see, it's you can do support. It really doesn't have many. The downside to this is it doesn't really have good documentation, which it's a shame because it being so old, you would think it would be highly documented through their users. But there are ports. It does use the port system very similar to BSD or Gentoo. It does have some mailing lists. You can do support. They do not have an IRC. However, you could probably do it through their mailing lists if you really need help getting anything else. Same thing with install help here. It tells you the operating system requirements, selecting a root disk, and also it has like a book, changelogs, propaganda, which I'm going to guess is like the store. Yeah, it's got like banners and stuff. So, what makes this unique based off of any other Linux distro is that there is no automatic dependency resolution. So you have to install everything by hand, which could be a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is obviously you have to do it by hand, but you have to know which dependencies that you really need. Luckily, there is a website, slackbuilds.org. So if we look for something simple, I'm going to use Caddy's example in his Slackware Adventures. If we just do a Ranger, if you come down here, you have the Slack build, and then you have the source download. So if we go into builds, you see that I have something called Spo Tools, which I will get into in a little bit. But say we wanted this, so we would say wget. You take the Slackware tar.gz, you say copy link location, you go back, insert. So what that did is that it gave you the tar.jz, so now we have to untar it, so xvf ranger. So what that does, it's untarred it, and now we have a ranger folder. So next thing we do is the source package. So we say copy link location, wget, paste that in there. So what we're going to do is move the ranger.1.9 in there. Oh, sorry. Into Ranger. Now we're going to go into Ranger itself, list that out. As you can see, there's the ranger.slackbuilds. So what we need to do is say sudo chmod +x ranger.slackbuilds. Put in the password here. Now we made that executable, so now we need to install it. So there are two different types of package managers on Slackware. There's the Slack package, which you use that for the initial update and to revise or to refresh the PGP keys of the developers. So you would do that right after the initial, and then there's something called package tool. So if we do package tool, okay. But we need to run the Ranger Slack builds. Let's do this again. So what we're doing now is just what we did was compiled it, but it's still not installed. So you would need to go to this folder here. So if we go cd temp and ls, you can see the ranger.1.9 spo.tgz. So if we go sudo install pkg, which is the CLI version of package tool, and say ranger, you know what, I'm just going to go into this. So pwd. Okay, so now if we do install pkg ranger, now we have installed the Ranger CLI file manager. So that's an easy compile. But if you wanted to do something more complicated, there's a tool called Spo Tools, which is definitely the best thing to happen. So what this does is it gives you automatic dependency resolution. So if we say spo find mpv, so this will go out to the mirrors that you would have to sync. To sync the mirrors, it would be spo spo fetch. No, I forget exactly, but you would update it and it would read the entire ports tree, and then when you say spo find, it will find it for you. So now if we go into the Slack builds here, do mpv, you'll see that it has ffmpeg, libas, and then you would have to do that for every single one of those, plus the mpv part. So if we go back and say spo install mpv, this will actually do it for you. Everything will run. So it's just asking some other options. I'll just say no and say yes, continue yes, and now it's compiling. So it's pretty much doing everything that I just showed you and automating the process. So there's just a bunch of scripts that you would need to do this. I'm sure you could probably create a bash script and do it yourself, but if there's a awesome tool like Spo Tools, why not use it? Except, it's very similar to like the Gentoo equery, eclean, and eselect thing when you're doing a kernel update. So this will compile everything that we need, and then at the end of it we should have MPV, which is a very it's a video playback similar to like VLC, but it's through the terminal. So I'll just let this run just to show you guys what it looks like. You know, hopefully it doesn't take too long here. So yeah, I put this on a spare laptop, and I thought I would show you guys just, you know, the basics. This is what I've learned today. I installed this on my spare laptop today, and, you know, following some of Linux for You and Me's videos and some of the documentation that I could find, I've gotten just very basic stuff. I had to do the Spo Tools first so I could get my simple screen recorder here. And, you know, the nice thing about it is that it doesn't use systemd or OpenRC. It has its own process. So let me, once this is done, here actually, let me open up another terminal here. CD, BWD. I think it's under, say, file system, etc, and then, so we'll say cd etc init.d. So if we list this out, it has the functions, but that's not what I wanted. So to get, say, like a network manager running, let's go back, cd rc.d. So here are all of the processes that you could run. It's very similar to really any other init system. So say if I wanted to run SSHD, which it's there by default, you would just chmod them. So you would say chmod plus x and then rc.samba. And then once that's, you know, chmoded, and you reboot, it will start automatically at boot time, which is very simple. I like that for sure, but it can be like you saw, a little weird to find it and to make sure that, you know, everything is working. I don't know if there's a way to find out if like how to find the status if something is running or not. I haven't found the documentation for that. But this is done. So now if we say MPV, it's just asking for a input here. So if we go back here, this is the first attempt of my video, and we would say MPV video. And then that's, as you could see, I'm just testing out my audio to make sure everything is working. So I do like MPV since it's very low resource, very low on the resource. So I'm going to try to theme this over the next few days and the next week. I'm going to try to play with this a little bit more. But it is definitely an interesting experience coming from, say, like an Ubuntu or a Fedora, OpenSUSE, an RPM distribution, or Arch, or even Gentoo. It's its own thing, and I do feel like you probably need to know a little bit on what you're doing. So if you have maybe 6 months to a year, you could probably give this a shot. I don't consider it a advanced type of distribution, unlike LFS or somewhat of Gentoo, but I don't even consider Gentoo that advanced, to be honest, as long as you read the documentation. So let me know if you guys have like any fellow Slackware people, if you come upon this, uh, tell me about any other programs like SBO Linux, if there's anything greater than that, or the best way to find some packages. Like I cannot find Z shell because that is my preferred shell. If I type it in with the Slack builds, it doesn't come up with anything. So yeah, give me your guys' opinions on what you think of this. And really quick, during the install, you have the option of XFCE, KDE, Blackbox, TWM, or Tiling Window Manager, which is what, if you ever have built Arch Linux or Gentoo and have done a Start X without any of the environments, that's the TWM. So it's very minimalistic. But let me know what you guys think of Slackware. Let me know if you are curious about this. And I will catch you guys in the next video.